Two top Pitt targets who took their official visits last weekend are about to announce their commitments. One tonight, one tomorrow. Who are they? What do we know about them? Where does Pitt stand? We're talking about it right here on the Morning Pitt on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. All right, there's the rock and roll, and that means it's Wednesday. I mean, it means it's any day, but today is Wednesday. It's the Wednesday edition of the Morning Pitt here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Chris Peak, of course, from Panther-Lair.com, here to spend, good 15, 20 minutes or so with you talking about Pitt sports here on a Wednesday morning. Get you started. You get your morning shave, get your morning shower, and your morning Pitt, as they always like to say. You know the deal. Go check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com, the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and recruiting. You find it all at Panther-Lair.com, and message boards to interact with hundreds and thousands of your closest Pitt fan friends. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com, and you know what I always ask you right after that, right? I tell you to go check out the message boards, I tell you to go check out the website, and I ask you to like this video. There's that little thumbs up you can give it over there, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That way you never miss any of our exclusive Pitt video content, whether it's a live show that we're doing tonight at 8:30 p.m. We do it every Wednesday night, the Panther-Lair show. Me and Jim Hammett get together and talk about Pitt sports, although I think Jim's not going to be here next week. He's going on vacation or something. Maybe we'll see if Jim can join us from vacation. How lame would that be to be on vacation and turn on your computer and do a 1 hour live stream talking about Pitt recruiting? We might make him do it. Might make him check in from the beach and do the live stream. He's allowed to have a beer on the show if he's doing it from the beach, but he'll be there tonight. Jim and I will be here tonight at 8:30 p.m. right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com to get you up to date on everything that's been going on. We'll talk about last weekend's official visits, the new commitments that came in from the official visit weekend, these commitment announcements that we're going to talk about here on this show. We'll be talking about it more tonight, me and Jim will, and everything else going on in Pitt sports, plus your questions and comments, because you can join the discussion. You can be part of the conversation on the live Panther-Lair show. That'll be tonight at 8:30 p.m. right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, and we give you something every day here on the YouTube page. These morning Pitt videos, Monday through Friday, give you a little start to your day, some Pitt sports talk to get things going. And the topic today is the topic that really covers today and tomorrow, because there are some commitment announcements coming. Two recruits who visited Pitt over the weekend, took official visits, will be making their commitment announcements, one tonight and one tomorrow night. And guys apparently still do this. They still have commitment ceremonies at their high schools. And it feels like it's been a long time since we've had one of these or followed one of these. It seems like all the commitments come from, official visit weekends, and then they tweet it out or put it on Instagram, and that's what counts for a commitment announcement. But tonight, man, we're kicking it like it's 2011. It's good old-fashioned, tonight and tomorrow, good old-fashioned commitment ceremony. And it starts tonight at, I think, 5 p.m. Cameron Monteiro, wide receiver from Brockton, Massachusetts. We've talked about this guy a little bit. Probably talked about him heading into the official visit weekend, previewed that a little bit. I forget if I talked about him on Monday or not. But we've definitely written a lot about him on Panther-Lair.com, and he's announcing his commitment tonight. His top three are Pitt, Virginia, and Kentucky. He took his official visit to Virginia 2 weeks ago, first weekend in June. He took his official visit to Pitt this past weekend. He was looking to take a visit to Kentucky maybe this weekend or the weekend after. Decided against that. He's just going to make his commitment tonight. And Monteiro's an intriguing guy. He's drawn comparisons among the Pitt fans who've been watching his video on Panther-Lair.com. He's drawn comparisons to like a Tyler Boyd type of guy. And I see it. I see where that comes from, largely because of how Monteiro is used at Brockton High School. He's a Wildcat quarterback. He wasn't always a Wildcat quarterback. He was a wide receiver as a sophomore, and he actually opened his junior season as a sophomore. Opened his junior season as a receiver, I should say. Played there for the first two games. Brockton went 1-1 in their first two games. They won the first game 13-6, and they lost the second game 37-7. So they scored 20 points in those first two games. Not a lot of offense. Things not really going so hot. So they moved Brockton to wide receiver to quarterback, to play this Wildcat quarterback, put the ball in his hands, give him a chance to make plays. Brockton goes on a tear. Next game. All right, now they scored 20 points in their first two games. They averaged 10 points per game. The game after that, when they first moved him to the Wildcat quarterback position, 42-34 win. The next week, 52-17 win. The next week, they score 50. The week after that, 59. The week after that, 35. The week after that, 48. The week after that, they lose a game. They score 37-34. But the week after that, they beat a school called Braintree, which is one word and pretty amazing name for a school. But Brockton scored 50 points, and then they scored 31 in their final game of the season. After opening the season 1-1 and averaging 10 points per game, they won 8 out of the next 9 games, scored at least 30 points in all 9 of those games. They scored 40 points in 6 of the 9 games and scored 50 4 times. I'm not going to say it was all because they moved Cameron Monteiro from wide receiver to Wildcat quarterback, but when you watch his highlight film and you see him taking the direct snaps and just making plays, and he ends up with 1,500 yards of total offense, rushing and receiving. I'm not even talking about some of the passes he threw, but 1,500 yards of total offense, 20-plus touchdowns. Again, I'm not going to say he was the whole reason that they went on the tear that they went 8-1 in their final 9 games to finish the season 9-2. But yeah, he had a whole lot to do with it. And when you watch him play, you watch his highlight tape, I mean, he's making plays all over the place. And in that way, he is kind of Tyler Boyd-esque. Now, like I said, he played wide receiver in his sophomore season. He started this junior season playing wide receiver for 2 games. And then he told me he intends to move back to wide receiver for his senior season. So he'll have more experience actually playing wide receiver than Tyler Boyd did. Some people in the message boards have also brought up Steve Breston, again, as sort of just a do-everything athlete where you just say, you got to put the ball in his hands. Give him a chance. Let him go make a play. And I think all of that is why he has been prioritized by the Pitt coaching staff. I mean, he was the only wide receiver to take an official visit this past weekend at Pitt. And I mean, I'm not going to say he's the number one wide receiver on the board. They had a 4-star guy, Nick Marsh, visited on the first weekend. He's pretty high priority for sure. But Monteiro is up there. And I think they're really intrigued by him. And, there may be a benefit to him being in Brockton, Massachusetts, as opposed to IMG Academy or something like that. Because the kid's a really good athlete, and he's a playmaker. And like I say, he's going to be announcing his commitment tonight. Pitt, Virginia, and Kentucky are the top 3. I think Pitt's got a good chance. We have more info and intel on that on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. So that one's tonight. Tomorrow, I think at 3 o'clock, Aliquippa High School, 4-star linebacker Cameron Lindsey announcing his commitment. And Lindsay is one of the top-rated guys locally. He's one of the 4-star prospects in this area, and a top linebacker target for the Pitt coaches. We'll talk in a second about linebacker recruiting in this class of 2024, but he took his official visit this past weekend. That was his second official visit. He also took an official visit to West Virginia on the first weekend of June, and he had been looking into taking an official visit to Cincinnati this coming weekend, but with this announcement coming tomorrow night, I would say he has canceled those official visit plans. I think for quite some time, we've all looked at Cameron Lindsey's recruitment and assumed that it would be a Pitt, West Virginia battle head-to-head, and I think that's what it's coming down to. We'll see tomorrow at Aliquippa how many hats he has on the table, but this feels like a backyard brawl, an old school, again, kicking it like it's 2011, old school Pitt, West Virginia battle for a recruit in Western PA. And the reality is Pitt's lost quite a few of those. Pitt has lost, I shouldn't say quite a few, but they've lost several. Drayvon Henry comes to mind. Quantel Rains comes to mind. MJ Devonshire wasn't a Pitt, West Virginia battle. He went to Kentucky, but Pitt hasn't been able to rely on Aliquippa for as much of a pipeline as it has been in the past. We'll see what Cameron Lindsey picks tomorrow. I think Pitt's got a really great chance. I think they really impressed him over the weekend. There was actually a quote from another recruit, one of the commitments. I think it was Jasir Whittington. He was talking about the recruits he was trying to help land for Pitt, help try to get to Pitt. And he said, Cameron Lindsey, I think he's got a whole new perception, a whole new perspective on Pitt after the official visit, which is interesting to hear someone say about a local recruit. But we've talked enough about local recruiting and some of the challenges Pitt faces. I think, the official visit was an opportunity to really make that case to Cameron Lindsey of why Pitt would be the place to be, of, the value of staying home, the benefits of staying home and what it really does for you. and why it's, why it's a good move. I think they did a great job with him this past weekend. I think they impressed him a lot. They showed him how he fits into the defense. He would, could potentially play any of the three linebacker positions. He told me he's 6'1", 200 pounds right now. He looks pretty big on his film. He looks like he's got, good enough size to play any of those spots. I like when you watch his film, the way he plays middle linebacker. Like I say, the coaches told him he could probably play any of those three linebacker spots, but I think that middle linebacker is a spot where he could really fit well. I think when you look at how he played at Aliquippa, he was lining up there in the middle, and he looks like a thumping middle linebacker who also could play the money. I think money would be a good spot for him as well. When you look at the linebacker class so far, they've got Davin Bruton committed already, and he's a middle linebacker. That's probably his spot. There's always versatility. I tend to think the middle linebacker and the money linebacker, which is that boundary side of the field, short side, linebacker. Those two spots are a little interchangeable. There's different responsibilities for each one, but there's some. You tend to have the same kind of player playing both of those spots, or you find some. Like I say, overlap between those two spots. So a guy like Bruton or could potentially play middle or money. Lindsey, I think, has, could play those two spots, but also has the athleticism to play outside as a star linebacker, which is the field side, the wide side of the field, where you tend to have some of your more athletic guys, some converted safeties and that kind of thing. Bengali Kamara type of player, Phil Campbell type of player. They're recruiting a number of linebackers in this class, guys who are converted safeties, and maybe it was a guy who was a big safety in high school, recruiting them to play that star linebacker spot. You look at last year's recruiting class. Jordan Bass, Rasheem Biles, Braylon Lovelace. I don't think any of those guys were really full-time linebackers. Lovelace might have been at Leechburg just because they don't have a ton of numbers on their roster, but I think even he might have played safety. So they like those kinds of guys to play that outside linebacker spot, that star linebacker, and I think Cameron Lindsey could project there as well if he does end up committing to Pitt tomorrow night. So you're looking at a couple days in a row here of potential good news for Pitt. And Monteiro, if assuming if he picks Pitt tonight, that'll be the second receiver in the class. We're still keeping an eye on Rick-Darius Farmer, the 4-star wide receiver from Florida who committed to Pitt back on Christmas but took an official visit to West Virginia last weekend, so we're keeping an eye on that. But Lindsay, so Monteiro would be a good addition to the receiver group, but they're going to need more there. And I think at linebacker, if they have Bruton, if they're able to add Lindsay to that group, I still think they go for at least one more, if not two more linebackers. To be honest, there's been some holes in the linebacker recruiting over the last couple of years, not necessarily in terms of talent, although to some extent. But if you dial the clock back, 2020 brought Bengali Kamara and Solomon DeShields. That's a good group. I think you feel good about that. 2021 was the year that was recruited under the COVID circumstances. Nobody was able to visit, and they signed one linebacker. They signed Preston Levant. He has since transferred. I don't even know if he made it a full year or not before he transferred. So that class, nothing. 2022, this most recent recruiting class, the guys who were freshmen last year, I should say, they signed two, Kyle Lewis and Marquand Pope. Pope was medically disqualified, so he's gone. I shouldn't say he's gone. He's still around the program. I've seen him. I saw him around during spring camp. He's still participating, helping out. A little bit of coaching on the field, but he's medically disqualified and he's not playing. So he's not someone who's going to help you. He's not going to take a roster spot and he's not going to fill out your linebacker depth. The other guy was Kyle Lewis. Lewis got hurt last year. And so I think he played a handful of games. He redshirted, but he got hurt, and then he was hurt again this spring. But everything I hear is that the coaches are really high on him. They think he's going to be really good. They like his upside. They like where he could be once he gets on the field and actually starts practicing. But even with Lewis, and even if he becomes a stud, that's still two recruiting classes producing one guy. at a position where you need to play 3 at all times, and you'd like to have 6 ready to go, or at least 5 ready to go at all times so you can rotate and keep guys fresh. You can't go through 2 recruiting classes and only sign 1 guy or only get 1 productive guy out of 2 full recruiting classes. And that's why they signed 3 guys last year with Jordan Bass and Rasheem Biles and Braylon Lovelace. And I think that's why they're going to try and sign 3 and maybe 4 linebackers again in this year's recruiting class. Bruton, I think, was a good start. Lindsey would be a heck of an addition. Probably a good chance that one of the unannounced commitments thus far is also a linebacker. I think that possibility exists, and I think they would like to get another guy. One guy who visited the first official visit weekend was Reggie Powers, a guy who's actually listed in the Rivals.com database as a safety, just kind of like Rasheem Biles was. I think, or Biles might have been an athlete, and Jordan Bass might have been a safety. I forget exactly how it broke down, but Reggie Powers listed as a safety, but he's another guy who could potentially play at the star linebacker position. He's, looking at Pitt, looking at Michigan State, where he took his official visit this past weekend, and looking at Northwestern, where he took an official visit in the spring. We'll see what happens with him, but my point is, I think they're looking to reload, and this is a little bit like the defensive backs that we talked about yesterday, that this is a big recruiting class for Pitt. This 2024 recruiting class is going to be a big one. 21, 22, well, they're already at 21. So 22, 23, 24, 25 recruits in the class. And when you're going to sign a class that big, you have room to take 5 or 6 defensive backs. You have room to take 4 linebackers. You have room to take 3 or 4 wide receivers. You have room to take 5 offensive linemen. You have room to reload 2 running backs, which is what it looks like they want to do. You have room to reload all of those positions, particularly when the last couple of recruiting classes haven't been that big. I think 2 years ago they signed 13 guys. I think it was the year they signed Rylan Gandy. Yeah, 2022. They signed 1 defensive back in a class of like 13. The class of 2021, when they only signed Preston Levant, the only linebacker in the class, that wasn't a big class either. So they've had a couple small classes leading into this. Last year was a little bigger, but not too much. This year, they have an opportunity to go for broke and go after a lot of numbers at a bunch of positions. And it just so happens that they're coming off of 20 wins in 2 seasons, the Sun Bowl, an ACC championship 2 years ago, Heisman Trophy finalist, ACC or Biletnikoff Award winner. All the success that they've had sort of is dovetailing nicely with one of the biggest recruiting classes they're going to have an opportunity. They've had an opportunity to sign in years. The last few classes have been smaller, largely because of the super seniors taking up that scholarship space, and they haven't been able to use it on recruits. But those guys are phasing out, and Pitt is ending up with more room in this recruiting class so they can take a lot of guys. And like I say, it sort of dovetails nicely with some real success on the field, so they should be able to make some real headway. So we'll be keeping an eye tonight on Cameron Monteiro. We'll be keeping an eye tomorrow night on Cameron Lindsay. Cameron's back-to-back. We'll get them both. We'll have to watch and see. We'll certainly have a lot to talk about on tonight's live Panther-Lair show here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. 8:30 p.m. is the start time for that. Me and Jim Hammett will be here taking your comments and questions as well as our own, talking about everything going on. Whatever Cameron Monteiro decides tonight, whatever Cameron Lindsay decides tomorrow, we'll be talking about it. And, of course, we'll have another Morning Pitt tomorrow morning to break down Monteiro's decision and any other recruiting developments that come throughout the day today. It's June. There's always something that comes up, and we'll have plenty to talk about. It'll be interesting to discuss for sure. So make sure you stay tuned right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And, and then head over and check out the website, Panther-Lair.com. Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Thanks so much for tuning in today. It's been a lot of fun. Hope you have a good middle of the week. We'll talk to you tonight on the live show, and then we'll be back in the morning for another Morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.